share, recipe share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share. Recipe Share, Recipe Share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Recipe Share, a program on AADL TV where we take a few minutes to talk about recipes in a featured category. Today's category is Super Bowls. I'm Katie, and as usual, I'm joined by Beth and Elizabeth to tell us about the recipes. So, Elizabeth, tell us what you made.
Okay, I will. So my recipe comes from a cookbook I got from the library, of course. And it's called the Apricot Lane Farms Cookbook, Recipes and Stories from the Biggest Little Farm. It's a farm that is in California. Lovely cookbook, annoyed me a lot. They just have like so much good like produce there constantly. And they're like, the cookbook's like, oh, in winter, like harvest your like peaches. And I'm like, no, this is not happening for me. Um, so that part was a little annoying. And they just have access to like there's a whole chapter on like beautiful stone fruits that like I hadn't even like heard of. And like anyway, so I don't know if I can recommend the cookbook for those of us that live in Michigan, but I did get my bowl recipe from it. And it is for grapefruit farro grain bowls with dill and feta. And it was a really easy recipe. Basically, you just cook some farro up. And then in the meantime, you cube some feta, chop some fresh dill, and you take a ruby red grapefruit and cut it up into kind of like bite-sized chunks. And then there's a vinaigrette that it called for in the recipe, which I will share here. I was in a little bit of a rush when I made this, so I just did my usual vinaigrette, which is olive oil, some apple cider vinegar, some Dijon mustard, a little bit of honey, and then salt and pepper, and I just whisked that all together. So their vinaigrette seemed fine. I just didn't think it was like needed for this. Um, and then you basically toss everything together in a bowl. And it was actually, it sounds really simple, but the flavors were quite unique. The grapefruit with the feta and the dill, like that is not a flavor combination I've had before. Um, and it turned out really delicious. I liked it a lot. And I thought that you could certainly, oh, I forgot, sorry, there's one other thing, pistachios. So that added the really nice crunch and texture that I was very excited about. So it was super good. I would highly recommend it. I know it doesn't sound like anything to write home about, but when you need a simple weeknight dinner that's just a little bit different than what I usually make, and obviously citrus is in season in the winter here, so that was really nice to have that. And it was great. You could use other cheese, although I thought the feta worked well. Um, you could use a different grain too. The farro was delicious, but you could certainly do this with brown rice, or you could do it with quinoa or whatever. I mean, it seemed like it would pretty much work with anything. Um, yeah, and it was really pretty in the bowl with the different colors, the grapefruit and then the dill and then the feta and everything. So it was kind of, it looked nice. I'm gonna try to remember it to just have in the back of my head for when I want something just a little bit different, for just a simple weeknight dinner. And it was great. I would recommend it. Apricot Lane Farms cookbook. They, although they called for like a weird type of grapefruit that of course I couldn't find. So this worked out fine. So that was it.
That's very cool. I'm definitely intrigued by the flavor combinations, especially the dill and the citrus together. I don't think that's something that I've ever seen or thought of. And then with the cheese too, like those three things, I'm just trying to picture in my head, but like I feel like it's winning, right? Like I feel like that's something I never would have thought of, but it sounds really good. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect thing to do with the one grapefruit that I have. And I love farro. So
I do
yeah,
too.
that sounds
Yeah.
really yummy.
Yeah, it was good, and, the pistachios were really good. I would recommend some kind of nut because it did otherwise it would have all been quite, like, soft, so I liked that crunch in there, but if you don't have pistachios, walnuts would have been fine, some, like, sliced almonds. It was, like, such an easy recipe to modify with what you have. I think the big things were this some kind of citrus like that, and then some kind of, like, fresh herb to kind of, like, combine with it, so was good.
I could see actually like orange and mint even. You guys
Yes,
don't have mint. Oh,
that's
yeah,
what I was
and
thinking.
feta.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Or I was thinking, I know, Beth, you love your goat cheese, like, this would be a
Mhm.
great you could throw goat cheese in this instead of feta, and that would be great. It would be all good, so,
Sounds yummy.
okay, Beth, what was your Super Bowl?
All right. Well, went a little strange this time. I've been curious about savory oatmeal, so I made savory oatmeal. I got this recipe from the Art of Pantry Cooking by Rhonda Carmen, which is I really liked that book. I didn't go through it quick, like the day it was due. I was like taking pictures of all these recipes. So anyway, it's pesto and roasted potato oatmeal bowls. So you take 1.5 pounds of small new potatoes cut into 1/2 inch wedges, and you uh um bake those for like just a few minutes. No, I'm sorry. See, I was mixing myself up by looking at something else. We first boil them for a few minutes, and then you put them on the pan so they cook quicker, along with like almost like a whole garlic clove head. Um, anyway, so you roast those. In the meantime, you're making your oatmeal, which was like 2 cups of oatmeal to 4 cups of water. Once they're cooked, fold in the cheese, which is this called from Gruyere, and you mix it up. And then once that's done, you add you have your bowl and your potatoes, which I used the colorful little round. So that was nice, red and purple. I have a picture. Um, and it it slapped, I'd say, just because it was a grain, and if it's got cheese in it, it wasn't like it was super cheesy either, but as we were eating the bowl, it was like you can't really tell what kind of grain it is, right? Because it's at the bottom. My thought as I was eating it was it could have used some greens, and yeah, it's because it was just the Gruyere, a little the pesto, salt and pepper. And by the way, I have found this recipe also in Grit magazine, which is I'll send a link to that. It's the same recipe. Um, so I wanted to see, is it something I would make again? Would I make savory oatmeal again? So I decided to make some yesterday. Made my own recipe. I used a little bouillon in my water for my oatmeal, and then I added Monterey Jack cheese. And then I had roasted some carrots, and I had my greens on there. I had a mixture of spinach and arugula. And then I did top it with a little goat cheese too. And it was good. It was good.
I'm tempted by this. Okay, so I've always hated oatmeal. And so this makes me tempted to try this because you said that really wasn't the highlight. I'm like, I want to make both of those with like other grains. But you
You
thought it
know,
was good
yeah,
with the
I
oatmeal?
mean, one thing I shared with my daughter because her kids, they're little kids. I was like, hey, if you're ever stuck for a meal, put some cheese in some oatmeal. I mean, I know it's not you're used to it being sweet, right? But um I don't eat a lot of it's not my go-to to have sweet breakfast that much. So anyway, it's just another option for you to make when you're looking for something.
Well, I just have to say that I'm with Elizabeth. Like, I have never had oatmeal that I liked. So, but I will say that if there was gonna be one, it might be the one with potato, pesto, and cheese on it. So hey, you never know. It's just kind of like every time you're saying that there's cheese in the oatmeal, it's blowing my little mind. Like I'm just like,
I know it.
what? But hey, that's cool. I'm glad you tried something new. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you did because I would never have like done that myself, but now with your endorsement, maybe I will.
I mean, if you're looking for something to do, and like say you do want a bowl for lunch, and
Mhm.
so quick to make, and rather than making rice, I mean, farro is pretty quick too, but this is really quick. It's 2 minutes.
What oatmeal did you use? Did you just use
used-
quick oats?
Yeah, the quick oats.
Okay.
Yep, not the
That fancy
hardcore.
steel
Yeah.
cut soak overnight,
Yes,
whatever.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'm down. It slaps. It's my new favorite word. Anyway, well, Miss Katie, what did you make?
Okay, so the recipe that I'm sharing today comes from this cookbook. It is Dinner Just for Two by Christina Lane. I first just want to say that I really enjoyed this book, but I really enjoyed it like more like recipes for one with leftovers. I guess both things. I used it both ways, and I do want to give it just a shout out to a recipe that I'm not going to be talking about because I've made it a couple times and it's super awesome. This Sloppy Joe tater tot skillet. I mean, that's some good stuff right there. But the recipe that I am sharing with you today is for roasted potato bowls with broccoli and grabiche. And so sauced grabiche is something that I've never heard of before this recipe. And I was saying it wrong before, so I think I'm saying it closer to correctly now. But what it traditionally is a punchy combination of mayonnaise, egg yolks, Dijon mustard, capers, and cornichons. This one is just a little bit different than that, but that's your basic idea. And so this bowl has like 4 basic steps to it. And one of the things that I like about this is that you could do this in any sort of order you wanted to. You could make some of it ahead of time. It's really good leftovers. But you start out with baby Yukon Gold potatoes, which I swear, you guys, this is like a staple of my diet this winter. Yukon baby gold potatoes coming out my ears right now. So it's not surprising to me that I chose this to share with you. But you do a really nice, simple preparation of those. Just slice them in half, toss them in olive oil, salt, and pepper, and you roast them in a 400-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes. I mean, that on its own right there is just tasty, right? So that's your base. And then you hard boil eggs. This has a whole technique for that. But I have an egg cooker that I use, so I almost always have hard boiled eggs on hand, or I'll just whip them up in the egg cooker. And then you steam your broccoli. Again, there's a method here, which I thought was pretty interesting because you boil water, then you add your broccoli florets, turn the heat off, cover, and let it sit for 5 minutes. And until the broccoli is crisp, tender, and bright green. It didn't get as tender as I like it with that method, so I just boiled it a little bit longer. That was fine. And then you make your sauce grabiche. So this calls for salt, Dijon mustard, white wine vinegar, olive oil, capers, finely chopped cornichons, fresh ground black pepper, and chopped fresh parsley. So you whip all that together, and then you pile your roasted potatoes, steamed broccoli, and chopped eggs into your bowls and drizzle the sauce on top. It says you can make the sauce thinner by adding more vinegar or more olive oil. Like I said, this traditionally has eggs, but eggs are in the bowl, which is why it's not in the sauce, I believe. And then there's no mayo in the sauce, which I appreciated. I guess I liked it. My biggest complaint about this recipe is that there wasn't enough sauce. So it basically made like 3 portions for me. Like I said, it was really good leftover lunch. But I used up the sauce in the first 2 portions, and then I had to make more sauce, but I just made like the full batch of it and I ate it all with the 3rd portion. So I honestly would like quadruple this sauce the next time I made this, and I will make this again. I thought it was really nice simple. You can make it ahead. And it tasted fresh and hearty at the same time. So it was a very good bowl recipe. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, that sounds delicious to me. That sauce, my mouth is like watering. I can like, oh, the little cornichons, so good. Yeah, I like sometimes like I know potatoes are like a grain, but I was just thinking about how sometimes I like recipes that don't call for like a big like grain base. Like it's like, or I guess they're not a grain, they're a starch, but like, you know what I mean? I kind of like that about this bowl, that it's just like farmers market stuff that you can like put together without that like pasta or like rice that is good, but I don't always crave.
Yeah, it's actually funny that you say that because I was looking for something that was a little bit different and didn't have a grain in it. And I was like, oh, potatoes would be a fun base. And I spent a while looking for something and wasn't finding it. And then it happened across this recipe. It was just like, yes, that's what I've been looking for. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just remember oatmeal though.
we'll keep
I
that
heard
in
it
mind.
slaps.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for watching Recipe Share and tell you to be sure to click the link below, look at the event page on aadl.org, where you can find the recipes that we talked about and share your own in the comments. Join us next time and we will be talking about recipes that are baked till bubbly. We're looking forward to seeing what you've been making, so thanks for sharing.
Recipe Share, Recipe Share, share a little recipe with Recipe Share.